When we talk about sensory perception and autism, some people, or perhaps many people, talk about hypersensitivities. And yes, they are important, but it is like start from the middle, because hypersensitivities are caused by other very important sensory perceptual phenomena. And in this video, we will talk about Gestalt perception, qualitative differences in experiencing sensation or receiving information. Other names are sensory gating deficit, which is present in most autistic individuals. I'll give you the definition of Gestalt perception. The inability to distinguish between foreground and background information, or like Donna Williams termed it, it was like having a brain with no sieve. And there are quite a few research papers that confirm that this is one of most important phenomena in autism. That is, perception of the whole scene as a single entity, with all the details, all these hundred of stimuli, visual, auditory, tactile, they are perceived, not processed, just at the stage of sensation, perceived simultaneously. And it means they perceive everything without any filtration or selection, no filters in their brain. And this results in a very paradoxical phenomenon. Sensory information is received in infinite detail and holistically at the same time, because it's not processed. But at the sensory level, all stimuli are important. Background, foreground, there is no background or foreground in this case. It is perception of the whole scene as a single entity. And of course, there are hundreds and hundreds of stimuli around us. That is, autistic children are bombarded with this information. They are unable to filter out information received through each of their senses. And they may react to all this bombardment and confusion with certain physical movements, vocalization, or stereotyped autistic behaviors. What is important to remember is each and every situation is unique, because even the slightest changes in the environment or routine may confuse and upset them. If any detail is changed, the whole scene, the whole gestalt is different. It means it is unfamiliar, and they don't know how to react to this. They find it difficult to recognize things if they are not exactly the same as they have already experienced. A very good illustration, you can see it now on your screen, is this drawing by Peter Myers, an autistic artist. Yes, many autistic people cannot draw like this, but this is the illustration of Gestalt perception. You can see this building with tiny details on it. If there is one window in this building is missing, it will be a different building altogether for many autistic people. Kanner, in his article in 1943, he described it. Of course, he didn't use Gestalt perception, this terminology, but he explained insistence on sameness based on this Gestalt perception. This he calls it the inability to experience wholes without full attention to the constituent parts. And this is a quote: "A situation, a sentence, is not regarded as complete if it is not made up of exactly the same elements that were present at the time the child was confronted with it." As I said, any tiny detail is missing, the gestalt is different, and they are lost. They don't know what to do and how to react. So every situation is unique. And every new thing. For example, if we buy something new for a child, right, new shoes, the child might refuse to wear them. Why? The feeling on his feet is so different. They wouldn't know how to walk. This is, by the way, from real life. One of the autistic authors wrote about it, that he lost the ability to walk. He didn't know how to move his feet because the shoes were new. And all these skills we teach the child, right? So this is a pencil, this is a comb, this is a mug. The child will remember. They are very clever. For example, today you'll show the child this object and say, this is a mug. Yes, you remember. They remember. But the next day, suddenly, you'll show the child and expect him to say that this is a mug. But it isn't. It is very different. What it means is we have to teach them the same skills, the same concepts, in different situations with different people, that this is a mark and this is a mark and this is a mark. This is a toothbrush, for example, a blue toothbrush. He will remember this is a toothbrush. The red toothbrush won't be a toothbrush. Again, we have to provide as many similar objects as possible. And they do learn. They are very clever. But it's our approach, how to give this information. If we understand why they find it so difficult to generalize, then we will know how to teach them, right? And what is more, some children, like my son, when he was young, he would react only to my voice. I will tell you this situation. We were at home, somebody came to visit us, and of course, seeing us together, this woman said, "Oh, hello, Alyosha, how are you?" Oh, no response at all. I repeated this. "Hello, Alyosha, how are you?" Immediate response, "Fine, thank you." Sometimes, even when the voice is different, that is why we have to teach them the same skills, the same, in different situations with different people in different locations. For example, some children wouldn't recognize their doctor, if they meet him or her in the supermarket. The place is different. They wouldn't even recognize that this person belongs to somewhere else. So with our understanding, I'll tell you another story which shows it. When I started this school for autistic children in 1990s, and illegal school, because I was not allowed to teach unteachable children, unmanageable children, mother came and said, "Look, you said that my daughter knows multiplication tables already, but when I ask her, no, she doesn't know. She cannot multiply." And I invited the teacher, and the teacher asks the same questions mother had asked before. The girl replied to all of her questions. Again, this shows, yes, it takes time, yes, perhaps more time, but they do learn and they do develop. And the more they learn, the faster they develop other skills. It will be easier with time. So this is very important to remember. As any tiny change is confusing, that's why they insist on sameness. Cannon noticed it, and they don't like changes. Because, again, to emphasize this, I will tell you this. It's like, for them, it is like physical laws of nature. Like, Newton sitting under the tree and the apple fell on the ground. If it is like law, it should be like this. If anything is different, apple will go up. And that's why their mental maps are in their heads. We have to help them to change these maps, to become more flexible. It works. So rituals, routines are very important. They help. That's why structure. structure the day of the day, structure of the place is very important when we teach them or do some activities. But they do become flexible. And by the way, Gestalt perception can account for strength of autistic people's perception as well. We do know many artists which created not necessarily just photographic already, but still with a lot of details of any paintings they produce. And Gestalt perception is reflected on other levels. For example, Gestalt strategy in language acquisition. It is echolalia. Yes, I know all children start with echolalia, but non-autistic children, for them it is a very short stage, right? Very short phase of their language development, and they move on. For some autistic children, it takes much, much longer, and unfortunately for some, echolalia is the only means of communication all their lives. We know about it. My son was echolalic. He started talking after he was 7 years old. He was nonverbal. Then it was echolalia up to his late 20s. Now he's 37. It's a bit later, but not much echolalia, but sometimes it is involuntary, and he cannot express himself still verbally. But as we know that autism, there is no autism, there are autisms, right? And sort of different causes, and that is why different outcomes. But still, any child, even if non-verbal, like my son, and very difficult, they do make progress. Our task is to understand what is going on, why it is going on, and to find methods how we can make their life easier. How can we teach them to be more independent in this life? And let us return to Gestalt perception at higher level. So echolalia, then insistence on certain verbal routines. Again, Kenna in his article mentioned it. And when children demand the same verbal scenario, again, for many years, it was like with my son. My son demanded the same phrases every morning, the same phrases, say good night, wish me good dreams and whatever. And I started becoming a bit deaf, and I thought it will work. No, it didn't, because then he talked not only his phrases, but he replied instead of me. And sort of, it was like a stage plays when one actor plays for two performers. And now it is better, yes, as I said, with patience, with understanding, you will know how to reply and how to help your child become more flexible. And Gestalt lack of generalization, we talked about it already. Again, in many situations with different people, the same skills. And Gestalt memory. Here you can see a drawing by Louis, a nonverbal child. He was 9 at the time. I think it is a very good illustration of Gestalt memory. It is a drawing of Humpty Dumpty. For those who are English, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. The whole story in one picture. It shows, we remember, for example, yesterday I got up, I did this, after that I decided to go there. Our memory is more flexible sometimes, and often, let us say often, we can change something, I did that, and no, and we can be sort of very free with our memories. We can change our memories while talking to somebody. For many of them, each situation, it is this Humpty Dumpty drawings. Everything is there. It is sort of one word for each situation. And that is why when I talk to parents and say, Autistic children have a perfect memory. They don't believe me. They say, no, no, no. Because when I ask my son or daughter, what did you do at school yesterday or what today, he or she cannot answer. I know, because my son's answers were, I don't remember or I don't know, until we changed our strategy. Because imagine if it is Humpty Dumpty situation, the whole day or the whole time at school is one picture. It's one entity. How can they answer? Because they remember where the teacher was standing, where their friend were running. It's impossible, right? So very useful are these communication books for children, for autistic children, when the teacher writes what the child did at school. And so before, like me, before I started asking these silly questions he couldn't answer. I read the book, and oh, you went shopping with Simon today, didn't you? And I got the full answer. Where they went, what they bought, with a lot of details, like bubble bath cost £2, 10 pence, and so on. You see, the right questions are asked, we get the right answer. Again, we have to remember about it. They have Gestalt memory. What we can do, how we can recognize Gestalt perception, as I said, notices every tiny change in the environment, right? It is visual Gestalt. By the way, because different children have different senses as Gestalt senses. For some it is visual, for some auditory, tactile, and so on and so forth. And another sign is they do not recognize a familiar environment if approached from a different direction. Some, like me, I don't understand them. I have the same problem. I leave the house and I'm lost if I cross the road. Because if I approach something from a different direction than usual, I'm lost. I don't recognize it because everything looks differently. So this is another sign of Gestalt perception. The third one, they get easily frustrated when trying to do something in a noisy, crowded room. It's impossible, isn't it? If more than one person is talking in the room, there are other people, even if they talk quietly somewhere, they can't understand the person who is talking to them, because all these auditory sounds are perceived simultaneously, right? No background, no foreground, and they are lost. And it is true not only for so-called nonverbal or echolalia children and adults, for high functioning as well. And Temple Grandin writes about it. She cannot understand what her communication partner is talking about if other people are talking in the same room. And again, I'll give you an example. I know it's better to give illustration than all these phenomena become very real. For example, I couldn't find a college for my son because he's not high functioning, and that's why we had colleges for very severe low functioning, and these colleges, they didn't want him because he moved from low functioning, like non-verbal, but he hasn't become high functioning, sort of, it was nowhere to go. I found one college for disabled people, not just autistic. And I went there and I talked to the staff. I explained the situation. I said, I will help you, but please help me. And perhaps he is the first autistic student in this college, but not the last, and you will get this experience. Yes, they were very nice people. They accepted him. But the first day, you can imagine, right? Because my son's behavior could be very difficult if he was frightened or confused. That's why I took him to this college. It was in nearest town to our place. In the morning, the staff met him took him in, and for several hours I was walking around the college listening to any sounds, police, ambulance, and whatever. It's not a joke, because sometimes it happened when he was a teenager, during puberty development, difficult times for us. Everything was quiet, and when they brought him out of the college at the end of the day, both he and his teacher were smiling. I couldn't believe it. It was our first success. And the teacher said to me, "Oh, you shouldn't have worried at all. Everything was really good. And you know he's very clever." I said, "Yes, I do. I do. But how do you know that he is very clever?" And the teacher described the situation. There were four new students in this room, each of them in four corners, with teachers and assistants who were quietly talking, right? And they said, "And Alyosha, your son," he answered not only his questions, but the questions asked for other students. I was so happy, because it wasn't perhaps very frightening for him, and he was trying to show off that he could answer all these questions. This is Gestalt. He couldn't focus on just only one voice. He could hear others. It's good that everything ended well. And after the first day, everything was fine. He learned the routines, where to go, and what will happen next. The staff were very good and understanding. So it is really, really possible. And not only to create the environment, but to change the environment, because it's impossible all their lives to be in the same rooms and and teach them this flexibility and help them to adjust to changes. Here you can see two pictures, two photographs. They were taken about 30 seconds in between. Can you see any difference? Because I couldn't. But then someone showed me these differences. Didn't you notice that there were handles in the bureau, and one of these handles, I think there are 6 of them, was not up, but half up, just half up. And it was my son. He came from the bedroom, his bedroom, to the kitchen to have breakfast. Every morning for many years, he corrected all the wrongs. You see, I would never notice that this handle was just half up, not completely. But for him, it took less than a second to put it down. I wouldn't pay any attention to this. He noticed every tiny change. And yes, at this age, he was he is 17, I think. He just corrected all my wrongs. But when he was younger and nonverbal, he didn't correct what was wrong in the environment, these tiny changes. He had meltdowns. And how could I understand? I couldn't. Eventually, as I said, they do develop if we help, and they would do something like this. And by the way, I always see benefits in all situations. Our house is quite tidy, neat. Not because of me. No. It's because of him. If my coffee mug stands by the telephone, immediately it will go to the sink in the kitchen. If there is a tiny bit of fluff, because we have cats, on the carpet, he would pick it up. Not only and just strand of hair, he would pick it up and put it into the rubbish bin. Everything should be in order. Everything should be where it belongs. So not everything is so frightening and bad about it, because always see positive signs. But if they need help, we have to help them. But the most important part, what we can do to help. First, we should find out which modality does not filter information. And this modality, sensory modality, I mean, is different for different children. And make the environment visually, if it is visual gestalt, or auditorily, if it is sounds, simple. What I notice, quite a few years ago, there was this government policy in schools. Learning must be fun, and including schools for autistic children. I visited one school, uh, and it wasn't funny at all. There is so much stimulation. All the walls were covered with pictures, announcements, whatever, different displays. It was impossible. For somebody like my son, he wouldn't be able to spend a few minutes there without being overloaded, or because visually it's impossible for him to survive there. And or sometimes they switch on music or this announcement, whatever. How can children learn in this environment? So that's why it is important to find out which modality does not filter information and make the environment simple, visually simple. For example, by the way, if it is impossible, and there will be movement in the classroom, yes, there will be. You know how we sort of found the solution for this problem in my school. We put the child's desk to face the wall, and even physically put this to isolate him from other children or whatever, visually, not isolate him, but to help him not to be overloaded with visual stimuli, and or provide sort of special like earplugs or whatever if the child cannot filter auditory information, and so on and so forth. It is possible. And as I said, teach them to recognize relevant features of objects. For example, this is a mug and this is a mug, and in different situation, and teach them to ignore irrelevant ones like pictures on these mugs and so on. Structure and routine make understanding of everyday activities easier and provide feeling of safety and trust. Yes, it is a bit sort of restrictive, it is like rigid, but when they are learning something, when they are at school, yes, it is important for them to know what is going to happen. This is where we learn, this is where we read, this is where we do this, at what time, and so on and so forth. Timetables do help a lot. But it's very popular, visual timetables. They do not work with those who are not visual. No, not all autistic people are visual thinkers. It's not about Gestalt, but I have to mention this because sometimes these visuals frustrate the child. Like my son once came from school very frustrated with a wound on his palm. So it wasn't good. And when I found out what happened, the staff who were taught to use PACS, picture exchange communication systems, and he wasn't very verbal at the time, they insisted on him taking this. And it was laminated and very sharp, and he was frustrated. The ending of this day was not very good. It's better for him at words because I taught him to read. And for him, it was easier if you use words, not pictures, because pictures are confusing for him. At least they were at the time. So that's why I see structure and routine will help with this. Timetables, but different timetables. For some of them, just write the words and it will be enough. Because for those who are not visual, it is very frustrating. And another thing is, always communicate to the child beforehand in a way he or she can understand, as I using verbal or visual or tactile means, object timetables, what will be changed and why. You know what? They will accept changes if they know. why they are necessary and what will be changed. And it's better with his active participation. Again, I will give you a personal example. If I change something in my son's bedroom and he is not there and he didn't know that it will be changed when he was younger, God help me. Because on the one hand, this is his bedroom where he enters, oh, this is my bedroom, but everything will feel wrong. But if I involve him, or let us do this, we will put it here, and this box will go there, he will help you. He will be happy to help and participate, because sometimes at schools, classrooms, all this refurbishment or whatever, changing wallpapers, summer holidays, right? For some autistic children, it will be very disturbing. It's better for them to know. Or the staff, yes, some teachers get ill or whatever, or go on holiday. If they know why and who will be instead of this particular person, they will accept it. You see, they are clever in this. If they know why and what will be changed, won't have problems. Teach the child that the same object, event, situation can be in different format, providing a lot of experiences, because some children can point at picture, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a table. They wouldn't recognize dogs outside the house, for example, because they are different. I worked with children like this. One boy in my school, yes, he could point. He was nonverbal. He could point at any picture in front of him, because the teacher used the same pictures all the time. A dog on a different picture again was unrecognizable. So that's what I'm trying to emphasize. The more experiences they get, the better. Teach him, this is a dog and that is a dog and those are dogs. Take them out. This is a street, this is a street, this is a street. Because see, the more experiences they get, the more understanding comes, the easier it will be for them and for you. And the more they learn, and the more they learn, the more they want to learn. Trust me, again, he is 37 now, my son, and we do have classes. He goes to the day center. I take him to the day center 4 days a week for a few hours. And when he comes home, we do classes. And he loves doing it now. Even if I am busy or I don't want to do it, he insists. Oh, now English, now writing, now this, now that, and we started doing music as well. I'm hopeless with piano, but we are learning together. So he started even learning Spanish online, and he loves to show off in the day center. De nada, gracias, and so on and so forth. So they do learn, they do want to participate. Other task is to help them, to create safe environment, to provide proper support, and that is it for today, for now.